2024 is going to be a kindergarten party compared to what happens in 2025. 2025, again, I believe there's going to be a failure to deliver. Once that happens, who knows where the prices can go? Forget about charts. You forget about everything. You're gonna, when all is said and done, count your net worth in ounces. And because this is it's a Western credit problem, and when credit breaks, you're going to see institution after institution fail in domino fashion. And I think the great taking will definitely be in place before the end of 2025.
Bill Holter, a seasoned financial analyst and commentator, has consistently expressed concerns about an impending credit event and its profound implications for both the U.S. and global economies. He argues that the current financial system is precariously balanced on an unsustainable foundation of debt and credit, rendering it vulnerable to significant disruptions. Holter contends that the real economy fails to generate sufficient cash flow to support the expansive financial sector. This discrepancy has compelled central banks, notably the Federal Reserve, to inject substantial liquidity into the system through measures like quantitative easing. Such interventions, he believes, are merely temporary fixes that fail to address the underlying structural issues. He likens the financial system to a patient on life support, with central banks acting as the sustaining mechanism. A critical concern for Holter is the potential for a credit seizure, where the flow of credit within the economy grinds to a halt. Such a scenario could lead to the collapse of supply chains, as businesses rely heavily on credit for operations, inventory management, and payroll. A disruption in credit availability would impede these essential functions. The doom and gloom prediction he envisions could begin as soon as 2025. In a recent interview with Capital Cosm, Holter discusses the coming credit collapse, emphasizing the interconnectedness of credit and currency. He posits that currencies are forms of credit. Thus, a collapse in the credit system would inherently devalue currencies. This devaluation could lead to hyperinflation, eroding purchasing power, and destabilizing economies. Holter asserts that central banks face a dilemma: either continue to inflate the money supply to sustain the credit system, or allow a deflationary collapse, both of which carry severe consequences. To mitigate these risks, Holter advocates for the acquisition of physical assets, particularly gold and silver. He argues that these metals are intrinsic stores of value, free from the liabilities associated with fiat currencies and digital assets. In times of credit and currency crises, tangible assets like precious metals serve as reliable hedges against economic instability and the next resort for all categories of investors. We will now present clips from Holter's interview, but before we do, please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
I think it all comes to a head in 2025. I think 2025 is the year, and what bolsters that thought process is, I just posted this 3 or 4 days ago, the Bank of England announced that if they bail out any non-bank institutions, they're not going to say who they are. I mean, first off, why are they bailing out non-bank institutions? But if they're telling us they're not going to tell you who it is, that tells you 2025, because it begins January 1st, 2025. So it tells you this year they foresee something happening where they're not going to tell you who they're bailing out.
Why would they want to do that? What's the rationale behind it?
I don't know, not to not spill the beans on who's insolvent, so that they don't get put out of business. It did kind of surprise me, because the way I understand it, and I mean, just if you look at the great taking, there's not going to be bailouts, there's going to be bail-ins. So it very well may be that we have bail-ins of financial institutions, banks, and there may be bailouts of non-bank financial institutions. It's hard to say, but it's really curious that the Bank of England would come up with this as of January 1st, that they're not going to tell you who they're bailing out. And don't forget, I mean, go back to 2008, the Fed bailed out the world. They lent out, what, 16, 17 trillion dollars, and we didn't find out about that for 2 years. Well, it's that simple. The markets are rigged. I mean, they rig markets with derivatives. What they want to go up, they buy, and what they want to suppress, they sell. So, I mean, yeah, they're rigging equity markets higher. They're rigging, I mean, they're trying to provide a floor under the credit markets. And I've said all along that when this thing breaks, it will be the credit markets that break.
Right.
And what very well could break the credit markets, you're starting to see bigger and bigger demand deliveries for both silver and gold. And I believe there's going to be a failure to deliver. I think it'll start in silver. Gold will immediately go into the same manner of non-delivery, and that will break confidence. And what happens to a Ponzi scheme? Well, it's completely over. The Ponzi scheme collapses, interest rates shoot through the roof, the real economy stops because credit stops, and I mean, you could, every day you wake up, you're only 72 hours away from a Mad Max scenario.
Mm. Are you familiar?
And without credit, you're going to see Mad Max, because nothing, and I do mean nothing, runs without credit. Yeah, I don't believe that there's an exodus coming at all. I think there's a die-off coming. And if you shut credit off, food becomes unavailable on pallets waiting to be shipped. Shipping will stop. Everything will stop. The average person has no food stored up. So within 30 days or 60 days, you're going to see an immediate blast of people dying just because they don't have food. And it may be that it takes 2 years, 3 years, 4 years for this to get through everyone's system, and you start to see even a higher turbocharged die-off. I mean, we're seeing cancers, we're seeing blood clots, we're seeing heart problems, and it's across the board. I mean, this is not just old people. I mean, you're seeing young athletes, 16, 17, professional athletes in their early mid-20s at the best shape of their lives, just falling down dead. So, is that part of it? Was that part of the original rationale? I would imagine it probably was. What will happen is you basically get a deflation in everything that you own and a hyperinflation of the things you need, like food. If there's no credit, all of a sudden, an apple or a dozen eggs is, if you can find it, $10, $20, $100.